Hello, 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 and welcome back to another UFC video. Listen, man, I'm a UFC fan, okay? It's very obvious if you are close to me, but I have some in-depth UFC knowledge that just has to be shared with the world via the Rod Meta YouTube channel. So I got, well, there's going to be two parts right here because if I talk, I got 24 fights that I'm looking forward to hypothetical, really. Some of them have been confirmed already, but a lot of them are just me matchmaking the fights I want to see in certain divisions. So I got 24 in total. If I sat here and talked about all of them, I feel like the video would be way too long. So I'm gonna break it up into two parts. So here we have the first 12 fights in the flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight divisions that I'm looking forward to now that it's 2025. So let's get right into it. Thank you for watching. Let me share my screen right here. We're bringing the Google Slides into 2020. I'm never turning my back on what got me here. Share my screen. Let me see if y'all can see it right now. Here we go. Okay. The first fight in the flyweight division that I'm looking forward to is the grudge match, the rivalry match between Kai Kara France and Manel Cap. This now, unfortunately, the UFC completely fumbled the bag here because I believe that they're going to do Kai Kara France for the flyweight title next for Alejandro Pantoja. And they already confirmed Manel Cap versus Brandon Royval. I think that's on the Saudi Arabia card. I don't know why they're doing that. That's the complete wrong way to go about this, in my opinion. But I still think we can see this fight in 2025 if both of these guys want to stay active. They certainly could fight later on in the year. This could work if, well, it wouldn't work if Kai Kara France beat Pantoja, but I don't see that happening. But if Kai Kara France lost to Pantoja, they'd probably do Pantoja versus Captain. All of this depends. Well, okay, let me tell you how this could happen. This could happen if they both lost. Then, coming off a loss, they do this grudge match at the end of the year. This could work if Manel Cap beats Brandon Royval, Kai Kara France loses to Pantoja, and they have somebody else waiting for Pantoja, whether that's him moving up, whether that's some other guys coming down to flyweight, which I'll talk about later. But there's a couple ways this could happen. I just want to see this happen because this is two very exciting strikers. Kai Kara France coming off UFC 305, where he flatline KO'd Steve Urseg in his home. Well, not necessarily his home country. He's from New Zealand, so pretty much right next to it. And then Manel Cap, he fought on the last card of the year, and he had a prime Anderson Silva type performance against Bruno Silva. He was looking flawless in that performance. So both of these guys coming off massive, knockout wins. And I want to see it, man. They've had some beef for a while, going back like to 2022 actually. It's been a long time. This beef, 2023 I should say. This has been brewing for a while. We're finally in a position where we could see this for a number one contenders fight, but hopefully we'll see it at the end of the year. I'm hoping at least. Next up, this is going to be the next flyweight title fight in I want to see. Like I said, I think they're going to do Kai Kara France versus Pantoja, but man, Figueiredo, I believe, is the last person to beat Alejandro Pantoja. I believe it was from by decision, I should say, and it just makes sense, man. Figueiredo, obviously a legend in the flyweight division, a very entertaining flyweight champion. He moved up to bantamweight, and listen, the weight cut was apparently very difficult for him. That's the reason he moved up. And he's looked good at bantamweight. He was riding that little three-fight win streak. He just lost to Piotr Jan by decision. No shame in that, by the way. But his future in bantamweight is kind of up in the air. He's not in a number one contender's position. He'll probably have to win multiple fights in order to get into that picture. But I think, I mean, he would deserve, in my opinion, a title shot right away at flyweight, especially considering what they've had to do for Pantoja his last two fights, giving him like the number nine ranked guy, and then somebody from out the company. Figueiredo, by that logic, would absolutely be deserving of a flyweight title shot right now. And there's a storyline, obviously, going back. Some people are hating on this fight. They think there's other more exciting matchups, but I'm looking at this in terms of what is really most challenging for Pan. That's what you should, if you're a matchmaker, your job is to put guys together. If you're trying to matchmake a champion, is to give him a guy who provides the toughest test. Figueiredo, I think, is the last person to beat Pantoja. He's looked very good at bantamweight. If he can make the weight cut, that's the hypothetical. That's the X factor here. We're not sure if he could even make flyweight at this point in time, but if he could, I feel like that's the fight to make. for the next flyweight title fight. That'll be Pantoja's fourth defense. And I mean, yeah, Pantoja's obviously an amazing champion. I'm just trying to come up with options for him really uh, in the flyweight division. Moving on at bantamweight, I want to see this. This fight would hit like crack. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not gonna put the negative energy out there that it's not gonna happen. The only thing that's making me think it won't happen is both of these guys have a case for a title shot, honestly. I mean, listen, Sean lost. People retroactively have been trying to make it seem like he did not lose that fight to Marab. They're looking at every single second with the fine tooth comb. Listen, man, if you have to go back and break down every single second of a fight to say, well, actually, this guy might have won rounds, it was clear as day when that fight was over. He knew he lost. His whole team knew he lost. Everybody in the arena knew he lost. I thought watching it live, it could have been a 4-1. Now, maybe retroactively, it wasn't that close. Marab didn't dominate him. He didn't knock him down. He didn't try and submit him. It was a pretty boring performance, but Marab completely shut down his striking and he did control him on the ground. That is Sean's fault for having a lack of wrestling. But if Marab did beat Umar, I think it is fair to say that Sean could fight Marab his first fight back. But if UFC wants to make a banger co-main event fight on any pay-per-view, the rematch between Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley, the fight that got O'Malley his title shot originally, that I thought was a robbery. I thought Yan beat O'Malley the first time. That's just my opinion. I thought Yan got screwed over time and time again by the UFC. But now he's back. He just beat Song Yadong and Davidson Figueiredo. He's looked very good. And he was in the title picture right now. I mean, Marab was calling out Petr Yan because he was trying to duck Umar. But now that that fight's taken place, I feel like this is the number one contenders fight that needs to be made. Because who do you think? I mean, who deserves a title shot between these two guys? Yan, obviously, a former champion. I mean, he's only had one clear loss in like the last like 10 years. I mean, I should say 5 years. I mean, I don't even know what happened, but even the I have known Jan since he beat Aldo to win the title originally. Since then, this man has not lost a clear fight besides the Marab fight. And that's a 45-50 decision. Okay. It's not like he got knocked out or submitted or anything like that. So this fight has everything, man. Two exciting, brilliant strikers. Their first fight was legendary. They have the history, all the chips. I mean, this will be a number one contenders fight. This has everything you'd want out of a number one contenders fight, and I want to see it desperately. Hopefully in March or April. I mean, because the fight for the title is taking place in January. Whoever wins that is going to take a good amount of time off, I think. This would be right in the middle of that. And then the bantamweight title fight would take place into 2025 between the winner of this and the winner of Umar and Marab. So it all worked. And the loser of that fight would fight the loser of this fight, in my opinion. So everything works out perfectly if they make this fight. Next up, Henry Cejudo. This is really what I want to see out of Jose Aldo because he's still in the UFC. He's still hanging around there. There are only two options I really want to see from Jose Aldo. This would be the first one. Fighting Henry Cejudo in an absolute legacy fight. There's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot on the line. I mean, they're both ranked bantamweights, I guess, trying to get. I don't even think Aldo really cares about getting a title shot, if I'm honest with you. I think he's just fighting for the money at this point, but also the legacy. This would be, if he won this fight, this would be one of, if not the biggest wins just on his resume in general. Henry Cejudo, obviously, former double champion, Olympic gold medalist. I mean, really one of the most accomplished combat athletes ever, like in any sport. So Henry's name obviously is up there. And since he's come back, he lost. I thought it was a clear decision to Aljamain Sterling. It was a split decision for some reason, and he also lost clearly to Merab Dvalishvili. So he has lost to a couple of wrestlers. Put him in there against a striker like Aldo. I just think it would be a very entertaining fight. I think it could main event a fight night. I think it'd be a really good feature fight on. I mean, pay per view. I mean, Aldo has his last two fights were both on pay per views, so I think there's a lot of factors here that I like. I think it would be an entertaining fight. There is a little bit. I mean, the winner of this fight, you could make a strong case deserves like a top five opponent. So I want to see it. If they do decide to give Aldo, like they're serious about having him fight other top ranked guys, I want to see him versus Cejudo because of the legacy and the what's the word? Just the ambiance around the meaning of the two legends of the sport. fighting and duking it out. But if they don't want to give him a top 10 guy, then I want to see him fight the biggest up and coming prospect in the bantamweight division. That's Peyton Talbot. I mean, this guy, since he's come to the UFC, he has made a very big name for himself. Every hardcore MMA fan is talking about this guy as the underrated, well, not even underrated. He is a force right now in the bantamweight division. He's been knocking people out in quick fashion. So, I mean, if he is to, you could give him like a number 14, number 15 ranked guy. But if you really want to push this guy, if he was to beat Jose Aldo, and especially if he was to finish Jose Aldo, that would be like Izzy fighting Anderson Silva back in the day. It would be that much, and it would do so much for Peyton Talbot and really making him a household name. So if the UFC is just done with Jose Aldo and they don't really care about what happens to him anymore, feed him to a young up and comer who can help build his name off of him, or put him in a big legacy fight against a guy like Henry Cejudo. That's what I want to see. And honestly, Aldo could absolutely beat both these guys. Like, let's not get him aside. I'm not trying to disrespect Jose Aldo here. It just depends on what the UFC wants to do with him at this point in time. Next up, we have Diego Lopez versus Movsar Evloev. Now, what I think is going to happen in the featherweight division is I do not think Ilya is moving up to lightweight. I just don't see that happening. I think he is going to stick in the featherweight division and get the rematch against Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think Volkanovski is going to fight anybody. I mean, he just deserves an automatic rematch. Volkanovski, he beat Holloway. He defended against Holloway twice, if I'm not mistaken. He defended against Yair Rodriguez. Didn't he also defend against the Korean Zombie? I mean, Volk was truly a dominant champion, number one pound for pound. He absolutely deserves a immediate rematch, even if he suffered a few losses, okay, recently, but he still does deserve that immediate rematch. So I think Volk versus Topuria, if they can get to Spain some point this year, is the fight to make, and that would leave these two guys the number one contenders fight. Movsar Evloev, obviously the only person to beat Diego Lopez in the UFC. That was a while ago. Movsar obviously undefeated, coming off a recent win off Aljamain Sterling, a very entertaining grappling match in the most recent pay-per-view. And Diego Lopez just being one of the most active, most entertaining fighters in the whole UFC. Even though Evloev beat him back in the day, he has been so active and beaten such high caliber opponents that he has surpassed Evloev in the rankings. His most recent one coming in a dominant performance in the Sphere against Brian Ortega. So they're currently ranked number 3, number 4. Either of these guys honestly deserves, like, if either of them got a title shot, that wouldn't be like a crazy thing in the first place. But there are a lot of guys in the featherweight division who like deserve chances. That it could be Lopez, Evloev, Volk. They all really deserve title shots. So let Volk get a title shot. Let these two guys clash in a co-main event of a pay-per-view, and then the featherweight division is completely sorted out at that point. So I hope they don't do Diego Lopez versus Volk unless Ilya is moving up to fight Islam. That would be a super fight unlike anything I've ever seen. Number 1 pound for pound versus number 2 pound for pound or something like that. So unless they're doing that, I feel like the featherweight division is pretty simple in terms of how you work it out. So this would be obvious. The fight itself between these two guys would be incredibly entertaining. I mean, Movsar is underrated as a striker. He obviously has all the skills in the world as a grappler. And Lopez, he's well-rounded. He's versatile. He has a great submission game, but he also is a dangerous striker, crazy power on the feet. I mean, both these guys could win in a number of ways, but I mean, I just want to see it. I want to see this fight and the winner of this versus Ilya to really see if anybody could beat him. But the winner of this fight would have a massive amount of hype in that division. So I would love to see it happen. Next up, Arnold Allen versus Yair Rodriguez. Where the hell is Yair Rodriguez? He lost to Brian Ortega in February, I think. And he doesn't even have a fight booked or no announcements or nothing. This guy has completely fallen off the face of the earth after winning the interim championship. Like only a couple months before that, he lost to Volk in Volk's only win like the last 3 or 4 years. But after losing to Brian Ortega, which by the way, he should have won that fight. He dropped Ortega like immediately, could not finish him because he has nothing on the ground. Yair Rodriguez has absolutely no grappling in his game whatsoever. He's like 35 years old, and he is only a striker. Versus a guy in Arnold Allen who recently beat Giga Chikadze on the England card, London card, I should say. So that was what that was 304, I think. So that was a while ago. Okay, it's been a couple pay-per-views. He has no fight announced, but I think he did say he wants to fight Yair Rodriguez on some sort of Mexican fight night. I feel like that is the fight to make in the featherweight division. If I mean, who the hell is Yair going to face if it's not a guy like Arnold Allen? I don't know how he's ranked above Arnold Allen. I mean, he's lost his last two fights. He has not won since like 2023 or 2022, I think. So it's been a while for Yair. And Arnold Allen, by the way, he was an undefeated up and comer, I think. Then he lost to what, Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev. No shame in losing. And by the way, both of those were decision fights. And the one to Evloev was a razor close decision, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. Arnold Allen, I think, is a very slept on, very underrated guy at featherweight. And him versus Yair, if he could put him away, I think that would really get him some more momentum going in that division. Moving on. This one, listen, I don't know what Aljamain's. He was talking about retiring after his recent loss to Evloev, so I don't know what is in the cards for him. But if he does want to stick around, this would be a very entertaining grappling match, just like the one he recently had against Evloev. Bryce Mitchell, I mean, he got put in a coma against Josh Emmett, but he did bounce back. Both of these guys, by the way, they fought on the most recent cards, so their timeline is exactly the same. They both, I mean, neither of them got finished. Neither of them really suffered any damage to speak of. So Bryce Mitchell, he won his last fight against the Abomination himself, Kron Gracie. Um, he got them bows in there. He put him away. So Aljo, obviously, he is not looking like he's going to be fighting for a title anytime soon. He's going to need 2 or 3 wins just to even put himself in the picture there. And Bryce Mitchell, he's still a prospect. I know he's like 30 years old now, but if the UFC wants to give Aljo another shot, I guess he could fight a guy in the top 10, a little higher than this. But if they do, if they think, like I think, for example, Aljo's on the way out, at least give a guy down the rankings a shot in Bryce Mitchell. He's already a popular guy. He has a big name. Give him a shot to build his resume up a little bit by beating a guy like Aljamain Sterling, former champion. So that's what I want to see in the featherweight division in terms of a vet and Aljamain Sterling giving a shot to an uppercomer like Bryce Mitchell. I think the fighting itself would be very entertaining, both high level grapplers, submission artists. So we could see a lot of interesting scrambles and shit like that. So I think this is a slept on fight. I've not seen anybody talk about this, but I think it makes a lot of sense when you really break it down. The next up, this probably would be the most entertaining fight of the year for me. It's just Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira. You can't go wrong. Two fan favorites, two guys who put on an entertaining fight no matter what. I mean, and it makes so much sense. I think Max technically is still the BMF champion. I don't know why. I mean, Ilya really should have won it for. I mean, he beat him. So why would he win the belt? I don't know. The UFC is weird like that, but this is absolutely a BMF fight if I've ever seen one. And it makes sense because Max beat Justin Gaethje, obviously dominant fashion, knockout of the year, whatever you want to call it. He beat Justin Gaethje. He is ranked number 5 in the lightweight division. I don't know how Justin Gaethje is ranked above him when he beat Justin Gaethje, but it is what it is. And then Oliveira ranked number 2. I just don't think they're going to give him a title shot. I mean, the options for Islam right now, it's only champ fights. It's either he defends against Ilya moving up in the number 1 versus number 3 pound for pound matchup, or he himself moves up to welterweight, which he deserves absolutely. After 4 title offenses, he absolutely would deserve to move up and challenge whoever wins between Bilal and Shavkat for the welterweight title. So those are the options. I do not see Oliveira possibly fighting unless it's for an interim title, but and until the end of the year. So, and by the way, if Islam, for example, was to beat Arman in January and then announces that he's moving up to welterweight, this fight right here could be for the interim lightweight title. So even more stake on the line here. You got the BMF fight, you got potentially the interim lightweight title on the line. And just by the way, this could be the main event of a pay-per-view all on its own. I don't care. These are two of the biggest stars in the UFC, biggest fan favorites, entertaining fight styles, and they even have a little bit of history going back in the day at featherweight when they fought each other because it was some weird injury, like Oliveira messed up his throat, so it was a weird injury finish, but they have that history. So I mean, this is a massive legacy fight for whoever would win this fight to get the other one like in their prime. And listen, maybe Oliveira is not in his prime anymore, but he looked pretty good against Michael Chandler. Like he was in control of that fight for the entire portion and until the very end when Chandler was landing 50 back of the headshots. So, and Holloway, arguably, you could say he really is in his prime right now. I mean, he beat Arnold Allen convincingly, knocked out TKZ, and dominated Justin Gaethje. So he lost to Ilya, no shame in that. But this would be an absolutely legendary fight, in my opinion, in the lightweight division. I just hope we get to see it because if they don't make it this year, I'm afraid we might never get to see this fight between both these guys in their relative primes. So I want to see that desperately. Then we got Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Now, this has not been confirmed, but I think both of them have said that they're fighting each other in Miami. I think I don't know when that is. I think it's March or April. Number 3, Justin Gaethje versus number 6, Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker coming off a razor close decision win against Mateus Gamrot in Australia. Justin Gaethje obviously has not fought since April when he got, put to sleep by Max Holloway. But there's just a lot on the line here. I mean, if Justin Gaethje were to win this fight, and if he were to knock out Dan Hooker, for example, you could make a strong case that he deserves the title shot. Because before the loss to Max Holloway, which was kind of a gimmick fight. Because when he lost to Holloway, Holloway was not even a lightweight. I mean, it was a BMF fight that Gaethje did as a favor to give a co-main event to UFC 300. There was a feature fight, I guess, but it was a co-main event to everybody else. But so before that, he knocked out Dustin Poirier and beat a great, probably the best ever version of Rafael Fiziev. So he was already in line for a title shot. And then he took this fight against Holloway. He lost. But if he were to come back, bounce back with a knockout win versus Dan Hooker, Gaethje absolutely is right back in the title picture. And if Dan Hooker would have won, that would be a 4-fight win streak for him. And you got to start looking at this guy in a number 1 contenders fight. So it's just in the lightweight division. And by the way, let's I haven't even talked about the entertaining aspect of this fight. 2 of the biggest sluggers in the UFC. Somebody's getting put to sleep here, right? It would be Hooker versus Poirier 2.0 all over again. The new, revitalized version of Hooker. He looks like his best version of himself. He had a great fight versus Gamrot and Gaethje. I mean, it's just this is a massively entertaining fight. It would be the feature fight of a pay-per-view. This would definitely increase the sales of whatever card it was on. So I'm hyped. I am definitely hyped for this fight. This fight has a lot of potential. It could be a fight of the year type of fight. Definitely, would have a lot of people. I feel like it would be split, to be honest. I feel like the momentum, obviously, is behind Dan Hooker. I feel like a lot of people are really counting out Justin Gaethje after his loss to Max Holloway. But if you think about Justin Gaethje's career, I mean, who are the guys he lost to? I mean, he lost to Khabib. He lost to Max Holloway. Who else did he lose to? I think he lost to Dustin Poirier like years ago, but this guy has only lost to the very top of the UFC, really. So against everybody else, he's taking care of business. He also Charles as well, I think. So Charles, Khabib, Holloway, Poirier. I mean, we're talking about all top pound for pound guys. So yeah, Gaethje. I think I would pick him to win this fight, but that does not mean I don't want it to happen. It would be fireworks if this took place. Next up, Michael Chandler versus Rafael Fiziev. Now listen, I'm not sure this fight is going to happen. I think they've already kind of confirmed. Well, I've heard from a lot of people that Michael Chandler is going to be fighting Paddy Pimblett. And don't get me wrong, I understand the purpose of that. If you think Michael Chandler's washed, then you give Pimblett a chance to build his name up. And if he's not washed and he knocks out Paddy Pimblett, that's a massive moment. And now Chandler's right back as a main event, you know, lightweight star. So I understand that. But I would prefer, I'll give you who I think I want Pimblett to fight later on, but I would prefer Michael Chandler versus Rafael Fiziev, a dangerous striking matchup here. Absolute barn burner, show stealer, fight of the night right here. This would be a hardcore fan's dream. Michael Chandler, the sloppy slugger versus the calculated Muay Thai specialist Rafael Fiziev. I have not seen this guy since the loss to Justin Gaethje. Apparently, he got hurt in a loss to Mateus Gamrot, and that was a while ago. So he has not fought in at least a year, I think. So, and he doesn't have even a fight announced. So I'm desperately trying to see who they put him up against. But I feel like this would be an electric fight. Obviously entertaining for the fans for a whole lot of reasons. And it's a win-win because like it's the same thing for Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett. Whoever if Fiziev wins, then he all of a sudden again is a star in the lightweight division, up and comer. And if Chandler wins, then he's right back to getting the big name, big money fights versus the other stars in the division. So it's a win-win situation for the UFC. And I just think personally, for me, it would be very entertaining to watch. Then this is the fight which I can't believe did not get made. For some reason, they're putting Renato Moicano versus Beneil Dariush for reasons I cannot understand. So if this fight did take place in 2025, it would have to be towards like the end of the year, which I'm fine with. But I want to see this fight, man. They've been talking shit to each other for so long. It felt like just obvious after Moicano beat Benoit Saint Denis that this fight was going to take place. So Paddy Pimblett, he finished Bobby Green on the London card. Great showing. I mean, he had a lot of haters before that fight. Now he has a lot of like hardcore fans who are like, "Oh, Paddy Pimblett, he's the guy, in the lightweight division that's gonna climb up the ranks." But both of these guys, I mean, they're on big win streaks. They have a lot of hype, a lot of momentum. They've had this beef for a while. I just don't know why the UFC didn't decide to put this fight together. So hopefully, I mean, if they both win, for example, if Moicano beats Dariush and Pimblett beats Michael Chandler, then this could be a low key number one contenders fight in the lightweight division, or at least a title eliminator for sure. So these guys, it feels like they're on a collision course. So hopefully they both win their next two fights, and we could see this fight in the end of the year. That would be amazing. But this is just a fight that has to get made, man. I mean, these guys are forces in the lightweight divisions, amazing grapplers. Both, I mean, the scrambles in this fight would be insane, and neither of them are slouches on the feet either. So I want to see this fight. I hope we get to see this fight before the end of the year because if we don't, that's just a travesty. And that's gonna be it for this video, man. I hope you enjoyed the UFC content. More coming in the future, I promise. So leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.